Hello, everyone. My
Okay.
name is Christian. Welcome to my hobby blog. We are doing another Withering Watchpile episode. This week's that we chose was Sleaze and Gore. This is one I think, after such specific themes, it was really nice to just have so many options. This time, I don't know if you experienced that too, but this was really easy this week. I finished it days and days ago, but joining us again is Leon from Under Nightmare 24. Welcome back.
Thanks, Christian, for having me again. It's always a pleasure. I look forward to going over this theme. I'm excited. I pretty much went through my whole collection. Could pick them out left and right. That's how much sleaze and gore I have. So
You
I look
also,
forward to it.
yeah, you also collect a whole lot of Severin, and they're like exclusively like sleaze and nasty stuff.
It's just for that topic.
Yeah, but I can't remember who went first last time. Who went first?
I'm pretty sure you did. So
Okay, so you can
I think.
jump into it then with your first one. I'm gonna go ahead and open my
Okay.
beer because, of course, I forgot to get the can opener.
Oh man.
It's part of my keychain for my car. Can't.
So I'm gonna start it off like I usually do. I'm gonna go with the worst to best, and I want to get this worst one out of the way pretty much. So I'm gonna start off with this is a kind of like pretty much a psychological horror film slash softcore porn,
Ooh.
and it's from Vinegar Syndrome.
Uh oh.
It's 1973's Sugar Cookies.
Isn't that Lloyd Kaufman?
Yeah, written and directed by Lloyd Kaufman, and also the writer. It says I put here of Silent Night, Bloody Night is involved in this. So
Ooh. Like the
yeah,
Santa Killer movie?
yeah,
Oh, I haven't
that's an
seen those.
underrated one.
I haven't seen those.
But this cast is very promising. It has I'll probably slaughter these names, but Lynn Laurie from Shivers and the Crazies. It also has Mary Warrenove from Night of the Comet, Chopping Mall. So it has a promising cast in this film. And this is pretty much like your psychological thriller murder mystery film. I mean, it starts off with you're out of way, have a pretty brutal kill. You have an actress named Alta. She's murdered. I won't say how, but that's how the film starts off. And pretty much the sleazy producer who pretty much is going through women in this film is the suspect. So they're investigating it, and you got these two oddball detectives that are pretty much sniffing panties in this film. I don't know, it's weird. It's just I don't know, it's just a perverted film. And both of them are like, oh man, I like to, have my way with these ones and whatever. And I'm like, kind of detective work is this, right off the bat? But um pretty much leads into solving who this, what happened to this famous actress because she stars in kind of like softcore porn films. She's real popular, and then you start to find like her coworkers, other women jealous of her because she's so popular, and who's the one, you know what I mean? And it goes into a story pretty much of betrayal, jealousy, and of course the murder. You got a son in here that's the sleazy producer's son. No, 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 he's his nephew, and he's like this kind of overweight kid, and he's pressuring him to go to Yale. He has to exercise. He doesn't want to. He wants to eat junk food and be lazy. And just real bizarre because the uncle gives him like $5,000, and he's like tells him go spend it wherever you want in the town. So he goes throughout the town. You can see him buying junk food and all this, and then it's just real odd because he goes and buys a hooker. Of course, he wants to get laid, and he's dressed as a woman himself, and he's like at a motel room with his hooker, and the hooker kind of like finds out who his dad is. I guess he's been with that hooker too. So she's like slapping him and hitting him. So he goes running out of the motel dressed as a woman,
Oh my
so that he
gosh.
gets arrested. Of course, and they bail him out, and the sister's all mad. She's like telling him, "How could you do this to my brother? Whatever." That's his ex-wife of the sleazy producer. You're nothing but trouble, and not showing him the right thing. He's like, he needs to become a man. So it's like, okay, that's how you're gonna make him come a man. And it just leads with these real odd storylines. I mean, you got another young actress that really resembles the actress who's killed who shows on the scene. and she's persuaded by all these negative people that led to the murder of the first actress. So it goes to a whodunit pretty much, and it starts real promising. The first 20 minutes, man, are just gets you into the film. You're like, yeah. I mean, you got gore, you got the sleaze, nonstop softcore porn, you got some bizarre scenes, but then after that 20 minutes, it just goes so slow. It drags and drags, and to the point where I was yawning. So it was that bad. And then it gets to the ending, and I say, okay, it's going this route, my kind of film. It doesn't. It goes the complete opposite. And I'm like, oh man, it just all around, like I said, it's a snooze fest. There's no action, and the ending didn't even live up to what I wanted it to be. So I don't know. It fell short for me. Like I said, the first 20 minutes are promising, but after that, it goes nowhere. So that's why I have it first. Not much more to talk about. I'm gonna rank it. Let's see. I'm gonna give it a 2.5 out of 5. I just had potential, but just fell short for me. And that's 1973 Sugar Cookies, the edition right there.
Yeah, because Lloyd Kaufman, he rarely made his own movies. He's more like a CEO of Trauma Films. So he was like mostly the guy just getting money and everyone. It's where James Gunn got his start, the guy who eventually made Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad, which came out last year. That one's kind of sleazy, actually, for a superhero movie.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. But he did Romeo and Juliet, James Gunn did. But Lloyd Kaufman is a very interesting character. There's a lot of fun documentaries and interviews with him where he's just like off the rails and he's like having so much fun. And he even shows up on the Cursed Films documentary series on Shudder. And I think it's during the Twilight Zone episode when they're talking about the helicopter crash. And he's sitting there and he's just like, I don't want people or a pregnant woman holding babies walking through the set and getting electrocuted. Like, check your shit out. Like, all the stuff. And he's like dressed as a woman. He's drag racing or whatever, like on set, because he's playing a woman, like an old woman. Because Trauma is infamously low budget. And he usually just shows up in movies just to fill in a role that no one showed up to. But this was one of those movies that he made like early on with whoever Laurie. I can't remember her first name, but she was in The Crazies and Shivers. This was her first acting role, and after that, I believe she went to Shivers with David Cronenberg, and then did The Crazies with George Romero. And those were like the only 3 movies she had like any popularity in or fame with. But Sugar Cookies kind of put her on the map, and Cronenberg saw that, I think. It's been so long since I'd listened to the commentary track for Shivers. But he said she just had that face. like you see
She
her.
does.
Yeah, you see her and it's just this very distinct face. And so that's why he casted her. And then, rest was history. But she talks about her time with Sugar Cookies, which I haven't seen that movie, so I don't really know how she is in that movie. But she was kind of hired on for her face, and she was willing to do topless scenes. But some movies she talked about, she got on set and was like, nope, not doing a nude scene at all, because she kind of got the feel of how sleazy people were. And it's funny that this movie has a whole storyline of a sleazy producer, because I'm sure she had experiences with that. But
Yeah, he kind of controls them in the film, kind of mind controls them to do what he says, and they listen. They go to him like a puppy, pretty much. Yeah, it's not the greatest film, but she's probably the shining part out of the film. Her acting.
oh yeah, you can't look up quantities of limited edition slipcovers. That's right. Can't do that on the app. That's the one thing I wish they had on the Vinegar Syndrome app.
Yeah, I wanted that too. That sucks for sure, man.
Because I know it's been low stock for a while, and I totally forgot about it during the sale, so it might have sold out already. But I can go into my first one. This is going to be a shocking.
All right.
This is going to be a shocking one. Let me pull my notes back up.
Go for it, man.
I just shut it off for some reason. This is one that everybody has been hyping up for years. Well, not years, like months. And it got leaked out that it was coming out on Vinegar Syndrome. And everyone's like, fuck yeah, this movie's so funny and hilarious. And no, it's not at all. It's the sleaziest movie I have ever seen. But, okay, so the movie I'm talking about, before I go into all this behind the scenes stuff, is Ebola Syndrome.
Oh,
this
man.
movie is, just looking at the cover, is so sleazy looking. Like, first of all, you can tell it's from Hong Kong, which, during this time of filming, they had a thing, the whole rating system of Category 1, Category 2, and Category 3 got instated in. So Category 1, I didn't write down what each one was, but Category 1 was basically like PG for us. Category 2 was like rated R, was like you need a parent to go see this. And then Category 3 is like NC-17, like you cannot buy the movie, it cannot be shown in theaters, you can't rent it, it's basically impossible. So this movie, or this release at least, is the first time it's been released uncut, the Category 3 edition. And the director talks about how there's this weird misconception that this movie's funny. And he talks about this in the behind the scenes because the movie is about a very sleazy, like, gangster who starts off the movie having sex with his brother's wife on the down low, and his niece, who's like 10 years old, she walks in on them, and then dad walks in, and the uncle kills everybody and just stabs people in the eye, and eyes are like falling out. He uses a chair and like smashes somebody's head in while this little girl is watching, and then dumps gasoline on her and is about to light her on fire, but someone walks in and saves her. And it is so violent in that beginning, and at first I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty like just over the top, like okay, I'm ready for this. I'm ready for like Peter Jackson like splatter like movies. Like that's what everyone marketed this movie as, was like a Peter Jackson film. And that's all I thought about the entire movie was Brain Dead, or Dead Alive. Brain Dead is the original title, but in America it's released as Dead Alive, yeah. And the entire movie is them basically escaping to South Africa, the country of South Africa in Johannesburg, where apartheid is going on, where like there's like systematic murdering and slavery of like white people, I think, or something. It's some horrible event way back in like modern times when this movie was made in the 90s, like ended around the 90s. And the violent murderer escapes to South Africa and becomes like a meat processor, and he's like spitting in people's foods and being just disgusting and unhygienic. And at one point his store owner is like, hey, we need to go buy some meat, come with me to the meat market. So he's like, okay. So he goes to the meat market, and they buy this like decomposing pig, a real life decomposing pig, and they're at a real South African meat market. So you're seeing frogs getting murdered, pigs getting gutted, chickens getting decapitated, like real life like stuff, and they're like zooming in on it, and I'm just sitting there like not wanting to watch it because it's so nasty. They show like the guts and like all this stuff, and the guy sitting there chopping off frog legs and gutting frogs. I can't stand like medical like stuff. I can watch decapitations of humans all day, every day, but when it comes to animals, I'm like, oh god. But so he buys the decomposing pig and walks through the front door of the fucking meat shop, and everyone starts like throwing up in the meat shop. And
excuse me.
No problem. And one of the people who are in there is the little girl grown up now. It's like 15 years later, and she's like, oh my gosh, that man stinks. He smells exactly like the man who murdered my family. Oh my god, it's him. And she disappears for like 100 hours. Doesn't come back until like the end of the movie. But he tries to cook the hamburger meat. Something fucks up. So he goes with his shop owner to go get the good meat, where a South African tribe that they actually visited in like the savannah of Africa, and they're like doing human sacrifices and like gutting cheetahs, and actual cheetahs are attacking our actors on screen. That was probably the highlight of the movie for me. That's always a lot of fun. But they get there and they're like, hey, we want the good meat. It's like, oh, here's some meat. And they're like, what kind of meat is it? And it's like, oh, human meat, duh. And it's like, oh, no. And it's like, okay, we'll take it. And so they take the chopped up, processed human meat, and they bring it back to the store. And the store owner and his wife is well known around the area for having very loud sex. And so while our main character is like chopping up the human meat for cooking in the fridge, or to like store it in the fridge for the next day, it's that night, he hears the woman like moaning and like screaming and all this stuff, and there's a crack in the wall where he can watch. So he takes one of the human meat slabs and like cuts it into like a vagina shape, and then has sex with it, and jizzes all over into the meat, and then closes it and puts it into the fridge. And then the next day, oh, I didn't even mention the thing that incites the entire movie's events. While they're out looking for the tribe, he sees a tribe woman who is like dying of something, we don't know. The title of the film is Ebola Syndrome, so later we find out it's Ebola she's dying from, and he rapes her. And so after he rapes her, he contracts Ebola, comes back, has sex with the meat, and then serves the meat to like a customer. And the rest of the movie is insanity, as he purposely spreads Ebola. And everyone he comes into contact with is like, we need to quarantine him now. And he, at one point, gets really pissed off at the shop owner's wife, because she is like someone he hates, because she's like, you need to follow proper like meat packing. You can't just like have meat laying around. And he's like, fuck you, bitch, and like wraps her up and like rapes her. And then her husband, the shop owner, walks in and is like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, get out of here, you piece of shit. And tries to beat him up. And then he kills the shop owner and the wife after having sex with her, chops them up, and then makes hamburger patties out of their bodies, and then serves it to everyone, and everyone else gets Ebola. And then he escapes, and the rest of the movie is him hunting him down. None of this movie is funny to me. It is absolutely over the top. They use like real human meat, it seems like. It is so crazy. Oh yeah, I have in my notes here, he fucks the boss's wife and eats her eyeball. He like grabs her eyeball, rips it out, and chews on it, and then chops her up and serves her as hamburger meat. But I was like, what the fuck are people talking about? This movie is so disgusting. Like, it is not funny at all, because I watched the supplement afterwards. I was like, oh my gosh, they finally interviewed the director for the first time in ever. And he talks about it, and he's like, yeah, this movie is not meant to be funny. We got hit with a category 3, like, before we even made the movie. So when that happened, we just ramped up everything to, try and sell it as the ultimate category 3 movie. Because, at least in America, when you get an NC-17, it kind of fucks your market success. Like, you don't hear of any movies that are NC-17 unless you actively look for it. And Hong Kong, when they had this, when it got Category 3, it was all over the newspapers. Oh my gosh, new movie. Got Category 3. Like, don't watch it. Make sure your kids aren't watching this. And so, when they would do that, it actually brought a shit ton of people to the theaters to watch it. And so it was a huge success for like a day because they had the uncut version. And then the cops like slammed down on them. And it was thought lost for a very long time. And then this release is really the first one that they got the uncut fully mastered, had interviews. And the director at one point talks about how like 99% of this movie was improvised because they were purposely making a Category 3, like, most ultimate Category 3 nasty movie. And so they purposely filmed in South Africa because it was a $20 plane ticket to get down to South Africa from Hong Kong because it was a literal war zone. And he talks about this, about how a ton of people in Hong Kong would go film in South Africa because it was like $20 to go film there. You get cheetahs, you get tribes, and all this stuff. So this movie, I don't hate it. I thought I did when I finished it, but ever since seeing that interview, I was like, okay, good, I'm not crazy. Like, the director purposely made it disgusting and not funny at all. He was like, yeah, we had fun on set, like, we were laughing at the over-the-topness, but this movie's fucking serious. Why do people think it's, like, Peter Jackson? And he talks about how he was inspired by, like, Die Hard. He just mentions that in the interview. I'm like, that Die Hard has nothing to do with this movie. I don't know what inspired him in Die Hard, but he said he was inspired, so I was like, okay, whatever you say, man. But
it's a very odd film.
Yeah, oh yeah, there he is with the cum meat. It's cooking. And there's a famous scene towards the end that I have seen so many times throughout the years and always wondered about, where he's holding a little girl hostage and he's like spitting at people, because if you get Ebola, any bodily fluid that touches anybody like within like 5 feet of you, they get infected with Ebola. So he's like purposely spitting on people, like at the end of the movie, like just spreading Ebola everywhere. And
he's just banging women left and right too.
Yeah, it's like just raping everybody, spitting on people. The cops and all the quarantine people show up to try and detain him, and he like grabs a knife and starts cutting open everybody's like bodies and bodysuits, so they get Ebola and they have to like quarantine because it's like, oh, we can't get him now. Like someone else will have to go get him because I have to go into fucking quarantine with Ebola. Like, Ebola's super contagious and awful. And they show actual autopsy photos of people with Ebola in the movie.
Wow.
And I don't know if you know, but it basically melts your body. And they show all that. And there's an autopsy scene, which I don't know if they did this in real life, but they cut down the middle of the face and opened the face and then cut it like here so they could like take the face off, and they kept doing that all the way to the bones. And I'm like, how the hell did they do that? Because that's a human head that they started with, and they didn't cut. They didn't like cut to like a mannequin or whatever.
That was an awesome scene.
Oh, you've seen this? Have you seen this?
I've seen this film, yeah. So
oh, okay. I thought you hadn't, so I was like, oh, okay, because I think it's fine.
I actually watched it a few weeks back.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, this is a recent release. Like, it's a good release.
Yeah,
but it was definitely mismarketed.
I'm going through it now, and I'm loving the reaction that you had to this.
Because everybody told me it was like Peter Jackson's, you know, Dead Alive. And I was like, oh, fuck yeah, it's going to be, like, fun. And I watched it, and it was just, like, bugs crawling on my skin the entire movie, which was on purpose. So on Letterboxd, I was going to give it a 2 out of 5, but I gave it a 3 out of 5. And I was like, it's good to know the director purposely made it sleazy and awful, and that like, he also doesn't understand why people think it's funny. The situation's outrageous, which I understand, but the way that's filmed is very nasty. So, that's my review on it.
Yeah,
It was interesting.
it's a very disgusting film. But
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed it, but not just for the gore. Basically, I like the gore in it, but all that other stuff would gross me the hell out, especially with the meat.
Yeah. He, like, came, like,
The
he.
scene where he's watching the.
It was. That was, like, in the beginning of the movie, too. I was like, oh my god. And he eats her eyeball after, like, fucking her. And I'm like, why? Why? Why did he do that?
What's the point of that? Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed the film, but it was a fucked up film, dude. It's one of the probably the worst film I've seen, disgusting wise. But there's like really no premise to it. It's just all out. I mean, then the spitting and all that. He's like spitting on people. I was like grossing out because I hate that. But
I thought he was going to be the hero. I was expecting it, like, to be Dead Alive, because everyone told me it was Dead Alive. Where our hero is, like, this nerdy guy, you know, he's not a hero. His mom is, you know, like, you kid, you got nothing going in your life. You're a loser. But no, this guy is, like, the bottom of the barrel. Like, he is not the hero.
scum. He's the total opposite of that. It's man, that I like the gore, the gore scenes, but it's a disgusting film, not for everyone. I could see.
Yeah, like, and like, people slammed down on this movie when it came out. It was very successful for like a day in theaters. And then people were like, oh shit, that movie's actually really disgusting. And it was 1991, I think. 1996, so not only was this movie coming out in 1996, but I was. So it's not even, like, old. I don't know.
And
Like, this is like a 70s, like, sleaze movie, but it was like 20 years after.
He's got to be the worst character I've seen in a film. Like total scum. Like
Even the main
characters
character.
get to me, but not like this guy did.
Yeah, even the main character in Serbian film isn't as bad as this. And he fucked his own son.
Imagine. Wow. Damn.
Like, this guy is so much worse. And, yeah.
He doesn't give a fuck about nothing. Like who he hurts, who he harms, and nothing.
He was about to light, like, a little girl on fire. Like, in the fucking intro scene.
That's when I braced myself. I said this movie's gonna be insane.
That's when I went from, oh, this is gonna be a fun Dead Alive type of movie. And then that scene happened, I was like, oh no, it's one of those. Okay, it's gonna be a real sleaze fest.
There's like multiple rape scenes in the film. It's just crazy.
And this isn't the only rapey movie I had on my list. 2 out of 3 heavily featured rape, so. That's all I have to say about this. I'm done with Ebola Syndrome for a couple months.
Are you gonna keep it in the collection or sell it?
I think I'll keep it, because I liked it. It's just like, I think I'll just spring it on people. When people come over, they're like, I want to watch a sleazy movie. I'm going to show fucking Ebola Syndrome. Fuck everything else. I'm going to show that. Make everyone hate me.
Enjoy the ride.
I'm going to take, like, drugs beforehand and just descend into madness.
I'll be like, I'm a vegetarian during this movie.
Yeah, show this movie to kids. They'll stop eating meat so fast.
Yeah.
Some weird guy in your local grocery store is fucking your meat with his Ebola-ridden penis.
Oh. One of a kind film, that's all I gotta say.
And one thing that the director mentioned was that he's made like 100-something movies. He's like the Takashi Miike of like Hong Kong. Because a lot of people in Hong Kong has made hundreds of movies because they had the I'll talk about this later, my best movie. But in Hong Kong, they had the Golden Sun Studio, which is where all the Shaw Brothers movies were made. And they made hundreds of movies because it was super easy to make. They had like 5 sets. But with this guy, he actually shot on location. He never filmed on sets. So there was that one scene where he's like driving through the city, just spitting on people. And I was like, holy shit, he's actually like in the city. And there's people looking at the camera. Like, how the fuck did they film this?
And I think that main guy's like a respectable actor too. He's came out in some pretty good films. They said it's a crazy character he played.
Yeah, he was in Hard Boiled, which is like a John Woo movie. Like, I loved Hard Boiled. And I don't remember him from that. I gotta rewatch that now and try to find this weirdo. Yeah, I was not prepared for this movie at all. Oh yeah, and he's holding the scissors here. But the father tries to make him cut off his own penis right in the beginning of the movie. And so you feel a lot of sympathy.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, oh, no, don't cut his dick off, no. And then he just stabs everybody in the dick. The father, the assistant drug lord, and like all these different people, and like slits throats. And we're like, oh, my God, never mind. This guy's awful. And like pours gasoline.
It's like a last desperation move to save his penis, pretty much.
Yeah, but like he went crazy, and he like starts fucking the girl again, and he's like, "This is all your fault. What'd you say about me? You wanted me dead? That I deserved it?" And it's
he totally
oh
switched,
my gosh.
And they're like, "This guy's a bad guy right away."
Because
not right away after that.
Because again, I thought this was going to be a sympathetic hero that we were going to have. Oh, he had to run away to South Africa because the crime family was coming after him. But no, he ran away so he could just work in a meat shop and poison customers.
And he's constantly looking for women, huh? It's like nonstop.
Yeah.
Just
they're like driving through the savannah and they see this woman dying and like crawling in the fucking savannah with cheetahs like following her, and he's like, I want to fuck that. Yeah, you're like, what?
Like, not even hello. Let me just go.
Yeah, he's just like, I want to fuck her. Okay, no one's around, and he fucks her and gets Ebola. Like, that's the inciting event for the entire
And then
movie.
he's like what is it, where he's immune to it? He's immune to it, so he's just spreading it all over the fucking place.
Yeah. Because he hates people. Like, this movie is so disgusting. I thought this was a zombie film. Someone told me this was a zombie film. And I was ready for a Hong Kong-produced zombie film. And instead, I got the sleaziest fucking shit. I was so excited for a zombie movie. Because this looks like a zombie movie. Look at them.
It does, yeah. I could see that, definitely.
I thought Ebola was going to turn people to zombies. And I was ready for that, but nope.
Not to a murderous, rapist, lunatic.
This is like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, except he's actually like a sympathetic serial killer, and he films him killing people. Like, I guess you haven't seen it, but I won't give spoilers.
I haven't seen that.
But like, he is a much better person. A fucking serial killer is a much better person than this guy. Like,
he's scum, dude. Total scum.
I think that's all I have to say. I'm like out of breath.
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to get into my second film. Do I reveal my beer for this because it has to do with this movie, or do I wait till the
go ahead.
Till the end? Okay, so I watched my first Jess Franco film ever.
Oh my gosh. Vampires Lesbos?
The name of the film is Bloody Moon from 1981. So I'm drinking a Blue Moon in honor of it.
That's awesome.
It has the moon in it, so... So the beer's revealed right there. So this is a slasher film. This ain't his like porn stuff, which it does have Sleaze, but this is a half English, half Spanish film. It's filmed, like I said, early 80s. And this is just a straight slasher film. It's about these girls that are... Well, yeah, this guy, he has a disfigure on his face. You could tell. It's good effect, makeup. He pretty much goes into a party, sexually assaults a girl, and then murders her. So then he's
All
sentenced
about
to like a
movies, man.
yeah. He's sentenced to an insane asylum. He's doing time there. He served his time. His sister gets him out a few years later. So they go back to this like villa, and it's kind of like a school area. You have all these girls going to school. They're trying to learn Spanish, so they're taking classes. And you pretty much got the whole family there. One of the guy's brothers a teacher. The other girl's just like this, kind of runs the village. She owns everything there. And then you got their sick mom in a wheelchair, which has all the money. And you have all the siblings fighting over the money. They pretty much want to get the inheritance pretty much from the mom. And they plan a plot to kill the mom. They end up doing that. And it's all about getting that money and taking over. So you got these girls, real awkward dialogue, and Sleaze. There's a lot of sex in this film. And then you got
That's every Jess Franco.
you got these two guys. You got the killer with a disfigured face, and then you got this guy named Paco. He's like the groundskeeper. He's real odd, and he's going in girls' windows, looking at them undressed and stuff like that. He's like a real creeper, and you right away think to him as the killer. He's right away the one who stands out. But anyways, you get these girls getting picked off one by one. They go to a bar. They meet this guy named Antonio. He's like the stud. He has two girls on each side. He's the man every girl wants in the village. These girls are just going on and on how they want to give it up to him. I don't know why. All of them just like, I want to be the one. I heard he's good in bed and all this. So they're like throwing themselves at him pretty much. He's treating them like scum, and they're still throwing themselves at him. And meanwhile, a killer stalks the night and is picking these girls off by one by one. And you got your final girl who's real cautious. She's the goody two shoe, but at the same time, she wants to have sex with this guy. So I don't know, it doesn't make her that good, but it's real odd because she's at her house at nighttime, and it's just people are showing up at her house. The killer goes into her house, stalking her, and then her friend shows up at the window. I'm going camping. Can I borrow a sweater? So she goes in the house, and then you see like the stud guy come in. Are you okay? Just people showing up at her house in the middle of the night for no fucking reason. It's just real bizarre. So okay, the girl gets murdered. She sees the murder. No one believes her. She's trying to tell him she was murdered, but the body's gone, everything. So you got everyone thinks she's nuts, that she's going crazy, and she starts to witness more murders, and like one by one they're getting picked off, and then you just got this odd scene where she's walking and a giant rock almost kills her. It's like rolling down a mountain, but then it misses her, and then she's like, I almost died. She tells the cops, did you see that? I almost got killed. And the cop's like, we can see nothing or whatever. And she's all, you guys don't do nothing. She runs away all pissed off. And the cop was all, I'd like to do something with her or something. Like, it's ran away with perverse cops. And all of a sudden you got like, one of the friends, she's like the show off. She has to have the attention out of the group. So she does this prank where she's having sex by herself in her room. She's just like jumping on the bed and making noises and moaning and ripping clothes to make it sure like the guy's taking control over, and her friends are all trying to see they're being perverts. They go in there and bust her. She's just jumping on the bed, making noises, and they're like teasing her, and she gets like so hurt. So then she goes off and just jumps in a ride with a stranger. Of course, it's the killer. And this is where you get to an interesting scene, because goes out to this like warehouse where there's like a sawmill or something like that, and I guess this scene was cut out. It was never released till this version. So it shows where the girl gets like tied up and a saw just decapitates her head. You could see it's a mannequin, but it's still an awesome scene. But yeah, this film delivers in the kills. You have a kill also where the killer stabs one of the girls through the back, and it goes through her breast, and you just see the knife go through her breast like that. It looks real authentic, man. I was like, wow. But yeah, it's a good slasher film. It also has to do with the moon's possessing these people to kill. So that's why it's Bloody Moon, I guess. But it takes control of them, and then it has a whodunit towards the end. I won't get into to unveil who the killer is. And he wears a black jacket, a nylon, and he has a
Ooh.
large knife, like a kind of jello-ish in a way. But I enjoyed the heck out of this film. I thought it was. I haven't seen too many Jess Franco films, but I'll give props on this one. It's a straight slasher film, jello elements in it, and great kills in this film. But it's just so awkward. This film, like scenes just come out of nowhere. Like I was telling you about the girl moaning on the bed, just jumping, and a rock almost smashing a whole girl, and she moves to the side, and the cop's just looking at her like, "I'd hit that," you know. It's just real weird. But overall, I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5. I enjoyed it, and I'd recommend it if you're a fan of slasher films, because that's what it is. Unknown brain slasher film, pretty much.
The only thing I know about Jess Franco, because I've seen Vampiros Lesbos, and basically how he makes movies, because he's made like 300 movies or something, and he's still making movies today, I think. But what he does is that when he's making a movie, and this was the case with Vampiros Lesbos that I read about, where he was making a separate movie and they had access to a castle or whatever. And so on the weekends, on any time they weren't working on the movie, he would get a very small cast together who were willing to work for another movie, and he would just throw something together, like, with no effort. So Vampires Lesbos is basically just softcore porn the entire movie of this vampire lesbian taking control of a horny, like, older teenager, like 18, 19-year-old, and having her come to her special Spanish castle, and they have sex for like 40 minutes, and they're like, okay, we're done, and she does the typical Dracula, like, dispose the body, eat her, whatever, and then she does it again like 2 or 3 more times, of luring young girls to her castle and having sex with them and then draining them of their blood. And he's actually making like a much higher budget, like actually planned out movie on the same location, like for his main project, and he just threw together some movie. And I've heard like half of his movies are like that, where it's just just off time, like movies he was making just to have like another movie done, try and maximize his I guess his sets and stuff, because it's not every day you get a Spanish castle for your movie. So he was like, okay, we gotta make 3 movies here right now and this weekend. So he would just throw stuff together.
Gotta take advantage of that. And I did watch the interview with him on this film, because they do interview Jess Franco, and he's smoking a cigarette, all cool in the interview. I'll laid back, but I kind of felt bad for him on this, because he said that they were kind of doubting him. They said he couldn't make a horror film, so he wanted to prove them wrong. And he's like, I can do it. You know, I know how to do it. So that's what he did to put this together. And he actually was kind of hesitant on this movie, and they told him that Pink Floyd was supposed to be on the soundtrack.
Oh, wow.
So that got him to sign, and they lied to him. There's no Pink Floyd, so he had to go find another composer. And he's like, they burned me really bad. And also they I guess he looked there and they never showed up, Pink Floyd, so he was like disappointed.
That's
so
what
he
happened.
found oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's what happened with Dario Argento for Deep Red. He had Pink Floyd coming on, and they didn't show up, so he had to find somebody, and head of this local group called Goblin, and he was like, fuck it, you guys can do the score. And they knocked it fucking out of the park, so he just stayed with them for like 10 years.
What a replacement, man.
Yeah.
And this guy got an Australian composer, and I really like the score on this film. It's kind of pornographic, but then it has like romance mix. Yeah, it does it with a score. So he did end up winning with this. But also he talks about the special effects guy. They were supposed to get this big time guy, and he ended up leaving for another film. They didn't tell him. He shows up, where's my guy, you know, and oh, he went to another film. He was pissed. So I guess he had to go searching all around, and he got a guy though, a pretty good one that made some effects. But he said I was lied to through this whole film. He's like,
gosh,
it was just like a scam to get me to do the film. But I enjoyed the heck out of this film, man. It's a essential slasher, I think. But that's all I got from the special features there on his interview.
Well, now
Oh, he
you,
also saying fucking a lot because I guess
oh
when he
yeah,
makes pornos, he's like, they're gonna fuck on this scene. He smokes a cigarette. I'm like, you
that's
can tell
ninety
this guy's
percent of
from the
his
sleeves.
movies. There's a lot of fucking in his movies. The
He
entire
says it a
movie of
lot.
Vampires Lesbo is just fucking. So,
Yeah, this I like this one because it's a slasher. I haven't seen his other films, but
well, hey, you only have 276 more Jess Franco movies to watch
man,
because he has a shit ton.
um, I'm moving in the right direction, I guess.
But I guess before I launch into my next one, I forgot to show the beer that I had. It's in relation to Ebola Syndrome. I don't know why it's not on the bottle, but it's called like Double Bitch. They changed
Oh,
it to
wow.
Double Dog, but I bought the super strength one. It's really cool. There's a diseased dog on this. I've had this
Nice.
before, so I sought this out for the episode. And it's 12% alcohol, so it's really powerful. It's already hitting me.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I've only drunk
Wow.
like a quarter. So only 2 of these get me pretty fucked up, so. It's an
That's how I went with
IPA.
a blue moon or bloody
Yeah.
moon. That's all I could think of the last minute.
Yeah, they did rebrand this. It's called Double Dog now. It used to be called Double Bitch. So,
Oh man.
because I remember in college, that was like one of the first beers I ever bought outside of like, just your standard Coors Light or Bud Light or whatever. I bought this because I was like, oh cool, Double Bitch beer. Yeah, I want that because I was cool. And then I guess they changed it
They
'cause
should
it's
have kept
Double
that
Dog.
name,
Yeah.
the double bitch. I'd
Because
be
the
like, man,
big company is called Flying Dog, which is that white right here. It says Flying Dog. That's like the big company, but this is like a special type, I think. I don't know. But this is what the main character looked like the entire fucking movie. This diseased, disgusting creature. So,
that's definitely him without his clothes for sure.
oh yeah, and he's without clothes through many scenes. But this next movie I'm gonna talk about is a surprise. I didn't know how sleazy it was until I actually watched it, and I'm trying to find oh yeah, okay. I'll read the description that they provide on here that convinced me to watch it for this episode. But I watched AGFA plus Bleeding Skull release, Boarding House. This is a really, really low budget shot on video movie from the early '80s, so it looks awful. It looks like Dad's home videos, and it's basically about this crazy man right here who rent or buys a house where I don't even know where to start with this movie. So let's just go chronologically instead of me trying to describe this. But the movie begins with your opening credits, actor this, cinematographer. Except the entirety of it is a woman moaning, and you hear like sex noises. The entire intro, and it's out of context. You don't know what's going on. And then a weird like computer program is like writing looks like the Matrix, or actually it looks like Deadly Games or Dial Code Santa Claus, where on the computer is the green text like going through and typing stuff out, and it basically says a professor and his wife died of apparent double suicide while studying telekinesis and Satan or something weird, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? We've only had text so far,
Yeah.
and I'm already like hooked. And we get a couple flashbacks of all the different owners who have lived in the house after this double suicide, where one woman is like reaching into the trash disposal, and a ghost something turns on the disposal and grinds her hand up. And again, this was probably made with $2, and there's a shit ton of blood pouring out of the trash disposal and like pouring all over the woman and the walls and everything. You're like, there's no way there's that much blood in a hand, but you know, whatever. It looks awesome. But we get more files of, because it's like a diary entry on the computer, where it's like, oh yeah, you know, more people were killed. You know, neighbor this was killed through falling off a ladder and conveniently landing on his spine, thus breaking it in half and dying instantly without feeling anything. And so this weirdo dude, his intro is him like practicing telekinesis in his like college dorm room, and he looks like he's 40 years old. So I don't know why he's in the college dorm, but he's doing it, and like there's like a newspaper like getting flung around on a string, and he's like dun 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 dun, and you see the little string like bouncing the newspaper along, and he's like, oh, I did it, I used telekinesis. And so immediately he puts
kind of looks like Bon Jovi now.
Oh my god, yeah, you I wonder if it was played by Bon Jovi, because oh my god, that he looks exactly like him. But he, after discovering that he's finally perfected telekinesis, he puts out a newspaper ad saying like, hey, any woman 18 to 25, come live at my house. It's only $100 a month. Come on over, we got a pool. And a shit ton of women show up, and all of them are always naked the entire movie. And all of them want to have sex with him. So he shows off his telekinesis powers and is like having fun. And we get like a weirdo Jallo killer who is like made by someone putting a magnet in front of the camera, so it fucks up the video a lot. And it looks awesome. And again, it's very low budget. But at one point, one of the residents is like taking a shower, and there's a lot of scenes with showers where the camera is like leaning towards like someone's breast the entire scene. And you can see the actress like looking at the guy like, hey, I thought we were doing just a normal shower scene. Like obviously uncomfortable at what's going on. And then blood starts pouring out of the shower head. And she's like, oh my god, I gotta get out. And she's like bouncing against the glass door, and her like the camera is focused on her chest as it's like squishing against the glass. And it's so uncomfortable to watch. And then she finally breaks out the glass door and turns into a really poorly executed pig monster that she sees in the mirror. It's kind of like Poltergeist. And she's like, oh my god. And then a woman walks in and is like, hey, like, it's okay, no one's here. And it's like, what is going on? And that's the entire movie, is one by one all these women having weird experiences with a magnet monster or something that uses telekinesis. And at one point, a super buff dude shows up, and he's like, I'm gonna go take a bath. And we don't know who this guy is. He just shows up and he's like, I'm gonna take a bath. And so he goes in the bath and he's like, scrub-a-dub-dub or whatever, like taking a bath. And then a hairdryer falls into the bathtub and electrocutes him. And he's like sitting there shaking, like comically, and doesn't know how to act like electrocuted. So he's like, oh, okay, and just dies. And they dispose of the body and they're like, okay, that was easy. And they move on with the movie. And like, who was that guy? What was he doing? Why did he need a bathtub? Like, in this house, in this specific house.
Arnold Schwarzenegger showed up to use the bathroom at your house.
It was really bizarre. I don't know what was going on. But, I think my favorite part is at the end when one of the women is having sex with him. And she's like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to bed. And so she goes to bed because I guess this is like a 40-bedroom house, even though it's like more like 2-bedroom. But I don't know where all these women are sleeping, so I assume it's 40 beds. And she's like, I'm gonna go to bed now. She goes to bed, and there's a spooky skeleton in her bed, and she's like, oh my god. And it's like House on Haunted Hill from the 60s, where it's like obvious strings and it's like bouncing as a marionette guy off camera is like moving it. And she's like freaking the fuck out, and she runs out of the house into a cemetery. I don't know where the fuck this cemetery came from, because it's like a suburban neighborhood that they were filming at. I don't know where this graveyard was. And there's headstones, and there are zombies and skeletons coming out of the ground, and you're like, what is going on? But the entire movie, and this is where the little back of the box comes into play. The entire movie, this weirdo Bon Jovi guy is wearing leopard print thongs the entire movie. That's all he wears. Everywhere he is, that's all he wears. And he's shirtless. And on the description, it says, from there, after the leopard print thong, it says, this unworldly slasher transformed into a sleazy, hallucinogenic maelstrom of gore, sex, chainsaws, pie fights, killer refrigerators, jacuzzis, beds that eat people, a new wave band called 33 and Third, and a leading lady known as only as Kalasu. This is the weirdest movie ever. And this movie would never even be found. And I love the artwork, the alternate. It looks awesome.
It does look sick.
But I've been delving more into the shot on video kind of stuff that Vinegar Syndrome and partner labels have been putting out, because shot on video is usually some weirdo who wants to make Evil Dead. That's basically every shot on video movie, because they saw Evil Dead and they were like, oh, they had no skills in making movies. I can do that too. But they didn't realize you need like a vision, somewhat shot composition, and competence in filmmaking. This is the only movie so far on the shot on video that's very competent. And there's a scene where a woman claws out her eyes, and it is awesome. It's so disgusting looking. It belonged in this movie. That's how awesome it looked. And I guess all the money went into that, because that's like one of the final scenes. And then we get the scene of John Bon Jovi going crazy. And we get an ending that is very similar to a Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me ending, which is like operatic, very colorful. What the fuck is going on? And it was awesome. I loved the ending. This movie was a treat. I was not expecting it. I only bought it for the artwork and not for the movie. And then I read the back of it when I got it, and I was like, oh, chainsaws, pie fights, you know, that big list that they had. And I was like, okay, I'm sold. I'm going to watch this. They used the word sleazy. I'm going to watch this for the episode. And I ended up loving it. So, yeah.
Sounds like a good time for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm all in on it. So, what is it, 80s or 70s? What is it?
It's 1982. So it's 82. Like just after Evil Dead. Because that's
my
81, I believe.
That's my birth year. So.
Ooh. You share a birthday with Boarding House. Good job.
Yeah. and I didn't have a leopard Speedo at the time, so.
I share a birthday with Ebola Syndrome, 1996. So, hey.
Nice.
I'd rather have Boarding House.
Rather have the leopard Speedo. Or whatever it is.
And the bouncing tits on glass for a good minute.
Oh, yeah. Full of blood. That just adds to it.
Considering how low budget it was kind of shocking how much blood there was. Because I was more leaning on the sleazy side, but someone's hand gets absolutely demolished by a trash disposal. A woman whips out her own eyes, and you see the eyeballs fall on the ground and someone steps on it. Like, it looks awesome.
That sounds really cool. So man, we're going through these films pretty quick here.
What's your next movie?
Are we? Oh, we're getting into the final one, huh? So this is a revisit, and I'm going to. Of course, it's got to be Italian, and it's from, of course, Lucio Fulci,
Uh-oh.
Blue Underground, Sleaze, and Gore. This fits the topic so good for me, so I had to pick it. My birth year, 1982's The New York
Ooh.
Ripper. Okay, so this is a Sleaze and slash, definitely. It's set in New York with that dirty, grimy setting, which I don't know if you've seen Maniac. It has that dirty
One
feel
day
to
I
it.
will.
This one does it, but even more dirty and grimy, man. It makes you want to take a shower after you watch this film, man. Guarantee. But does not have Goblin on the soundtrack, which I thought it did.
Oh.
But it does have Francisco De Masi, who I love too. He did soundtracks for like a lot of spaghetti westerns and my favorite Chuck Norris film, Lone Wolf McQuade. He
Oh.
did the score on that. So this guy, he's one of the top ones. This is could be considered a straight up dirty slasher. It could be a giallo. It has both of them in one, and it starts off with pretty much a killer who makes this awkward duck noise. He make quacks on the phone,
Oh my god.
and he calls victims, he calls the cops, he's playing with them, and he just does his quacky noise, and he targets mainly young, attractive women. So you have this scene where this girl pretty much gets into it. She crashes into a car on a bike, and she pretty much tell the guy's like telling her off, like, watch where you're going. That's it's real sex feminist right away. He's like, watch where you're going. That's why women should stay at home. He tells her or
Oh
something like
god.
that, and she's like, fuck you, jerk, or whatever. They meet up on the ferry. They get on the ferry to go to in New York. They're in that area, and she sees his car, so she decides to go get in the car and prank him. She gets her lipstick on. She's writing shithead or shit on his car to get him back or whatever. And as she goes there, you see the killer just approach her, and it's through a POV vision. And she's like, "Hi, it's just a prank. I'm just kidding." She's all freaking out. And he starts doing his little quack noise, his little duck noise. Oh, it's real awkward, and pretty much slices her whole torso up from her private area to her freaking face, and
Oh
you see
wow.
it. I mean, it's Volty gore, and you just see her get sliced up through the whole thing, throat, and you see her skin just peeling. You know how Fulci could do that gore, and all of a sudden the cars are just going out, and this guy's like, "Hurry up, you shithead!" They're in New York honking, and car wouldn't move. The car just moves, and you see her bloody face just come out of the window, and it starts off the film. But before that, you have a scene with a pretty much a hobo throwing a thing for a dog to fetch, and it's across the New York Bridge, and then all of a sudden the dog brings a hand. It shows the whole hand just coming in his mouth, and the guy freaks out. That's how the film pops off before that, but forgot to mention that. But anyways, we go fast forward, and it goes through New York. You got the peep shows, the porno shops. It's real grimy and dirty, and that's the way I like films to watch, and it has a like live sex show. They're actually having sex in the show, and these people are in the theater
Oh.
watching, and you got this girl pretty much pleasuring herself, and there's a guy that walks in. He's got deformed fingers. Two of his fingers are missing. He's real like grimy and dirty, and he's watching this girl getting turned on, and you got all of a sudden the girl disappears, and this guy's like, "Where'd she go?" He's looking for her because he saw her like into him too, and it leads him chasing him after, and it fast forwards to the cop scene where you got the tough rebel detective. He's talking all these one-liners, and you get that in the film, of course, and he's he's pretty much after this killer, and the killer calls him and makes the duck noises, like the quack quack, and he's playing with him. He's a smart killer, and he'll tell him, well, the next victim's this one or that. See if you could get to it on time. So he's trying to, get to the figure it out, and we fast forward to where a girl's brutally attacked in a kind of like a subway. It leads to a subway, and then it goes through the outskirts of New York, and you got this killer. He pops up, of course, he uses a switchblade, and he makes the quacking noise. Of course, I'm bringing up a lot, but He slices her with a switchblade across her leg, and you just see her skin open up.
Oh.
Or he's slicing her, and she's running, and she escapes him. She's the witness. So you got her in the hospital, and he's after her. He doesn't want no witnesses, so he's stalking her. And then you got the caregiving boyfriend there, who's real emotional, trying to protect her and all that. And it leads up to this girl. This is a real bizarre scene, but a girl. She's a rich wife that's bored, and I guess her husband lets her go play around in the city. So she goes to this bar, and you got like this. It's a Puerto Rican bar, and you got her just sitting there, and she's pretty much with a trench coat with lingerie under. She has no panties on. So she's sitting there just like a kind of nymphomaniac. So you got these. She's looking at this guy's junk. It's just showing on his pants. So they know that she's looking at him. So these Puerto Ricans go and start to flirt with her, and then you got this awkward scene where the Puerto Rican dude puts his toe in her down area and is fondling her, and she got her like getting turned on. She likes him. He's like, "You like it?" And they're pouring her beer and having her do, and then all of a sudden, I guess it offends her for some reason. She slaps one of them and runs out of the bar. It leads down to where she meets this guy. The suspect is this real awesome looking guy. He has, like I said, he's missing 2 fingers. It's gross. Meets up with her, and I mean they meet up at a motel, get down, and she's murdered. So then you got the victims just getting picked off one by one, and this guy's on the run. He's blamed for it. So they're all after him. But then you bring up this real sharp profiler, and he's like saying they hire him. He's like, that's not the killer. He's just a gigolo, a drug addict running around New York. That's all he wants. And it leads up to that's where you get the Jallo twist, because you got like the killer. They capture him, and the killer's still abroad. You got like this killer has a razor blade. He gets this prostitute and slices her up from her stomach to her face, and you see her eyeball get cut in half. Going up with a blade. It's just real gore-full film. So that's all I'm going to get into, because I think I'm giving away too much on there. But it's a whodunit film also, and it's done so well. Like, honestly said, Maniac with Joe Spinell is my favorite dirty, grimy, take a shower afterwards slasher. But I gotta say this one's the ultimate, and I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5. I'm gonna say this one is probably my favorite Fulci film now after revisit. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's funny because you talk about the pornos in theaters, and there's a really funny scene in Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver where Robert De Niro is like dating a young what's her name? She was in Silence of the Lambs. Jodie Foster. She's dating a young, and she's like 14, 15 or something at the time.
Wow.
The actress, no, she's working at a prostitution house, and the lady he's dating is like someone else who's also young, not like below 18, but he goes out to a porno bar on a date with her, and she's like, wait, do you go here often? He's like, yeah, I go here all the time. What's wrong? And there's like people like jerking off like in the theater and stuff, and she's like, I don't want to be here, and she just leaves. It's a really bizarre scene. But that entire movie is like a descent into madness with Robert De Niro's character.
Yeah. This film has that same feel of Taxi Driver, just way more sleazier and way more gory. Like, I mean, Taxi Driver has its gore, but this one does it like, Fulci can only do it. He brings that. He's also in the film. He appears as the commissioner or mayor.
Little director cameo.
He's fighting with a detective. It's real cool to see him in his film. He does that a lot, but honestly, I think this is my favorite Fulci film now after the revisit.
Yeah, I revisited Don't Torture a Duckling for the Spooktober watch list, and I was like, it's okay. And then there was an interview with like an academic scholar of like Lucio Fulci, and he talked about all this different stuff, talking about like outsider versus insider, about how there's that major highway in that movie that comes into town of this like really tiny Italian village, and everyone assumes the killer is from outside, but really the killer's from within. And he talks about like, the urban versus rural and like all this stuff, and I was like, God, like this movie's actually pretty awesome. And I ended up going off for like 30 minutes or something on that video. And that Zombie, I think he did Zombie, right?
Yeah, he did.
I've seen that, and like one other. But I did get a Lucio Fulci in the mail, technically a few days ago, but picked it up today from the parents' house. But I need to get more into him. Like, he's such a blind spot.
He has some good stuff, man. Especially his early stuff. He had my favorite was Zombie, actually, till I watched this one again. This is my favorite, New York Ripper.
Zombie has a zombie fighter shock, I think. That was the only thing I still remember. And the eye stabbing scene, which is so disgusting. That scene, oh my gosh.
This one has a razor blade go through an eyeball. And you see the eyeball getting cut up. So
anything with the eyeball I can't handle. Like
it's pretty bad.
But anything else with that before I go into my lecture about my final
I'm just
movie?
gonna say there's a whole documentary on these special features about Fulci. It's called Author of Beyond Terror. I need to see that, but I didn't watch it. But that's interesting.
Alright,
But
well,
that's it.
I guess I'll go into mine. You specifically asked me multiple times if I saw this movie, and I kept having to dodge it because this was the first movie I watched for this, like back in like Monday or Sunday. But my favorite movie of this was Robotrix.
Oh, nice.
I just got this in the mail. The corner is a little beat up, but I mean, whatever. But it's just a tiny, tiny wrinkle. But I didn't realize how big this fucking release was. It's like a limited edition Arrow. It comes with
That's awesome.
Giant double-sided poster. Oh my god, I can't show that. That's something a bit more vague. Maybe I can show this. This is the front of the poster. I'm going to show this really quickly, but the back of the essay, okay? Lots of nude stuff. There's like 4 essays in here, all about the movie. 2 of them are about the rating of this, which was Category 3. This was another Category 3 movie, but I need to cover this up. Here's the front. I can't show about half of it, but this is a really loaded release. I was kind of shocked when this came in the mail, because it came in a big box, and I only bought 2 things from Orbit, which was this and Ricky O. And I was like, there's no way. And it was in this giant box. So I was like, holy shit. And I opened it, and it was this fucking giant release. But this movie is absolutely bananas. This is the most insane movie on top of, like, Lady Terminator. But Lady Terminator is, like, not even close to this. But I turned on the intro for this movie, which has like a 30-second intro by the director, and he's like, hey guys, this is the first time this movie's ever been released uncut. Have fun. And then he just goes away. Like, he doesn't say anything except that.
Damn.
So I was like, oh shit, like, I'm in for a treat. But this movie is just crazy. Oh my gosh. So it opens with a totally kick-ass intro song. This was made in 1991, and it's very 80s. I mean, the director talks about how, I'll go into that later, whatever. But there's a lot of nudity in the beginning. Basically, we follow this dude who is the prince of, like, Saudi Arabia, who's in Hong Kong for, like, some business, like, venture. And he's super hairy. Oh my gosh. His entire body is like a carpet. Like, it's insanity. And all these Hong Kong women are, like, making out with him. And it's like, oh, you're so hot, you're so hot. And some dude walks in, like, well, first, somebody releases gas into the room. And it's, like, starting to come out, and everyone just passes out immediately. And it's like, the gas is just coming out. There's no way the gas has reached 20 feet into the room. But everyone just passes out. And it's like, oh, okay, that's weird. And then instantly, the guy opens the door and walks in, doesn't pass out, and captures the prince of Saudi Arabia. And he's like, okay. And he just walks out. And some woman's like, hey, stop it. And he just shoots her in the fucking face. And the blood goes everywhere. And then we get a tech show, which is where the king of Saudi Arabia is at. And they're showing off a bunch of Power Ranger looking robots who are like equipped with super martial arts. And they're doing like acrobats and like going on ropes and swinging and like all this stuff. And they're like, see how agile they are? And then a random killer robot walks in, starts shooting people, and one of the not seen robots that haven't been presented yet at the tech show, it comes into it and starts having a Power Rangers fight with this fucking killer robot and wins, and everyone's like, oh wow, this is a great robot, it just saved all of us in an actual scenario of life or death situation. Like, we're gonna pay money to get more stuff with that robot. But it was around this part that I realized that the dubbing is the worst I have ever seen in my life. Like, I've seen a lot of Italian movies, and there's some really awful dubbing. But this movie takes the cake. This movie is... Wow. I don't even know what was going on. They have like 40 different nationalities like represented in this movie. And they all speak their own language, and they dub it over with English. And it is so awful. It's not timed right. Because the German language is like pretty long. Each word is like 20 letters long. And they talk, and he's not done talking on the camera. And so they do his line, and it's like, okay, I will go with you. But it's like in German, it's this long thing. And then the next person's dialogue comes in while his mouth is moving. And it's like, that's the entire movie. It is bizarre. But so the Power Ranger fight is really fun because they're not even trying to hide the wires. And they're all flying around punching each other. And at one point, someone tries to like hit someone with like a crowbar, and it hits the wire, and they can't hit him, and so they just cut away to try and ignore it because it's like the actor didn't realize he had wires on, and it's so bizarre. But I'm going through my thing. Oh yeah, and then immediately after that, the police run in. But not because there was a killer robot, but because they're going to the king of Saudi Arabia, and they're like, your son has been kidnapped. And he's like, oh, a killer robot just tried to kill us all. Okay, let's go solve this issue. And so, somehow, they take the woman whose head exploded in the beginning of the movie, and they hook her up to like a thought control helmet. I don't know what the fuck they were trying to do in this movie. But it's called a thought transfer helmet, which somehow transfers the thoughts of her dead body to this robot. I don't know. The tech does not make sense at all. And so she is now part of this robot body. And so she's like super hot now, and she can do everything. And she's basically the Terminator. And it is so funny because she's this Power Ranger now, but her voice is, her normal voice. And you can see the actor's eyes behind, like, the ski, like, goggles is what they had. And they had, like, the suit for, like, the Power Rangers armor. And every time they cut to that Power Ranger armor, you see the guy's eyes going, like, listening to the dialogue. And it's so funny to watch it. And they can't even see out of the helmet, so he keeps turning his shoulders because he can't see, like, his field of vision is just like straight ahead of him. So he has to move the entire body to look at people. And it is so funny to watch. But then the main characters thought transfer the Power Ranger robot back into the body or something. They do it again. I don't know what happened there. I just wrote it down. I was like, maybe it'll make sense later. But they established the antagonist of the movie by him putting his thought transfer into another robot of his own. And he's like fully clothed, like whatever, like I'm going to take over the world with my killer robot army. And then every time a woman does this in the movie, she has to be totally nude. Like the entire scene. And it's like, go in the machine, okay, and takes off her clothes and sits down on this well-lit table. It is so bizarre. But, oh yeah, and we meet our hero, who isn't actually the hero of the movie. He is like chilling at a bar, and Power Ranger woman is like, oh, I saw you were sitting alone at the bar. May I drink with you? And he's like, yes, you may drink with me. Because it's the worst dubbing ever. And it doesn't match anything. I don't know. I guess they told the actors the script was one thing and then just changed the entire script afterwards. But one of the guys like feels her up in the bathroom that she's in, and he walks in, he's like, you can't do that, and punches him in the stomach and caves in his stomach bones or something, and he dies. And it's like, you see from the back of the guy, there's a fist-shaped like lump coming out of his back from how hard he punched this guy's stomach. I don't know. But we get one of the most uncomfortable sex scenes of all time. This was the weirdest one ever. It's a full-on porno sex scene where he's like choking her and doing all this different stuff, pinning her against the wall, yelling at her in her face, and like all this different stuff. And this is our hero, and we assume this is the male hero of the movie. And during this scene, we're like, oh no, he is not. Okay, he's somebody. And he like has sex with her like 4 different times, where like he'll come and be like, okay, I'm having sex with you again. Does it like 4 times straight. And then he's like, okay, I'm done with you. And he just fucking throws her out the window out of this 3-story like motel. And she hits like every object ever, falling down, and then slams on the car, and the alarms go off. And her head is like split in half, and like it is so bizarre. And I just like burst out into laughing because it was just like bang, hit a bar, bang, hit a thing, bang, like all the way down to the street, and then hits a car and breaks the windshield. But our woman robot's boyfriend, who has like his cop scene where his lieutenant is like, you're out of control, mister. It's like, I don't work with the law. I gotta do justice for my girlfriend. And his girlfriend is actually the Power Ranger. He doesn't know this. He actually has a fear of heights because he accidentally caused the death of like a 14-year-old boy who was beating an old woman to death, like an old lady. And he was like, oh yeah, like I saw this 14-year-old boy beating the shit out of this elderly lady, and he beat her ribs in and killed her instantaneously. And so I chased after her, and he ran off a cliff. And so I reached for him to try and catch him, and he fell like 20 stories or something. I don't know. I guess they were on a skyscraper doing this. And as he was falling down, he looked me in the eyes, and I can't look down heights again without seeing that boy's eyes. And you're like, what the fuck is going on during this entire scene? And he's like, and so throughout the entire movie, he can't look down at any fucking heights ever. And this is the first 30 minutes, okay? This movie's like 2 hours long. But, there's some really weird detective work happening where our main robot Power Ranger woman was a cop before she got killed. And they make up this thing, I don't even know what to call it, where they're like, oh, before you die, your mind takes an image of what the last thing you saw before you died was. So what we're going to do is we're going to extract the eyeballs out of our latest victim's body and download the image from his eyeballs about what he last saw to see who killed him. And you're like, that's not how it works. What the fuck are you talking about? And it is so funny because they're like, yeah, that sounds like a good plan. And then they do it. What fucking reality are they in? It is the funniest shit ever. And so, as we go throughout the movie, there's like 2 more points that I have about the movie itself. Then I have a whole lecture about the behind the scenes. So I read 4 essays about this with the help of this release. But we have our badass bad guy killing his own allies scene that is in every 80s action movie ever, where he's like, oh, I've changed the terms of our agreement. And he's like, oh, you can't do that. I'm taking back the money because that's not what our agreement was. He's like, fuck you. And he takes out a wicker basket, like the straw, like, you know, the linked wicker baskets. And he closes it on the guy's head and then crushes his head and decapitates him. And then throws the head at someone and kills somebody with his head. And you're like, what is going on? But the effect is probably the worst I have ever seen. It doesn't look good at all, but it's hilarious. But by the end of the movie, our bad guy rapes our main character, like in the mouth, everywhere, anally, everything. And it is so funny. I think I texted you this, but while this scene was happening, he was like, yeah, you choked on my dick or whatever. And they show his dick, and it's like just the head.
Yeah,
there is no dick. Like, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this guy has no dick. Like, what is that? And he's like sitting there all proud of himself, like, yeah, I got a big dick. And they cut to it, and it's this tiny fucking thing. They didn't talk about it in the special features, but I'm gonna assume like the actor was like, I want to show my dick on camera, my giant dick. And then, no, it's not. Like, it's the tiniest dick. I've seen bigger dicks in like Lucio Fulci and like Jess Franco movies. But like
the mushroom from Mario Kart.
Yeah, basically. It is basically just the head. Like, but the ending is absolute insanity. I have never seen an ending like it in the history of film. And I'm not going to elaborate. But to go into some behind the scenes, because this may be fascinating to you. But he was a Shaw Brothers actor for a long ass time throughout the 70s and 80s. And eventually he was like, hey, I want to be behind the camera. I want to do directing, producing, and all that stuff. And he was part of a company called Golden Harvest, which was the name I was trying to look for when talking about Ebola Syndrome.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's a really famous one. They put out hundreds of movies a year. They put out the Once Upon a Time in China movies, which Criterion just did a box set of, which I'm going through very slowly. But basically, they made this poster here that I have to cover about half of it in order to even show it on YouTube. But they made the poster for it, and then they had the title Robotrix. And they were like, all right, we got to find somebody to make this movie. It's like every 80s movie ever, with the really badass covers that get people into the theater, and then they get suckered into watching the most boring fucking movie. Thankfully, this movie is not that way. It's insanity. And so, one of the big head honchos of Golden Harvest is named Choi Hawk, who is the director of the Once Upon a Time in China series, at least the original trilogy. And so he's like a big fucking deal. He asked the director, Jamie Luke, who made Robotrix, who was eventually chosen, to make the movie because Troy Hawk was just too busy, because he's actually a very well-known director. And the director explained, Jamie Luke, that director, explained that around this time period was the golden age of Golden Harvest, where you had Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung just constantly doing new movies. And 88 Films is releasing a ton of those actors' movies, which I need to get. But
same here.
The producers apparently told the director that it was going to be a Category 3 movie. And so, again, it's equivalent to our NC-17. There was going to be no marketing, no release, really anything. It was just going to release for like a day, and like that was it. And the producers were like, hey, ramp up the sex stuff, because we want to do RoboCop and Terminator. And the one thing they both didn't have was sex, so ramp that shit up. And so he was like, okay. And so he did a bunch of rapes instead of sex scenes. And again, on the intro of the movie, before the movie plays, the director was like, this is the first time this movie has ever been released uncut. And it's because there's 6 minutes of rape scenes in this movie that did not pass anybody's censors, and they had to cut it out. And this is the first time ever it's been released. And I just showed it. Whoops. A bunch of press. But yeah, it was kind of shocking to read about all the essays talking about the Category 3 and all those rating systems, because they talk about Ebola Syndrome in that essay. And that's why I decided to watch Ebola Syndrome, because I was like, oh, this essay, compared Robotrix and Ebola Syndrome together against each other. I was like, okay, well, I guess I have to watch Ebola Syndrome now. And so
I'd say
did.
This one goes into the Category 3 as well.
Oh, I'd say. Yeah, they talk about that. They talk about that. They talk about Evil Dead. That was given Category 3. Basically, any movie that had a hint of rape in it got a Category 3. I don't know why Evil Dead was on there, but that was on the Video Nasties list too. So, whatever. But our main antagonist, who rapes our main character, is played by Billy Chow, who is actually like a world kickboxing champion and has been in 1 billion Shaw Brothers movies, apparently. I haven't seen a single one yet, so I can't talk about it. But there's a really interesting part of the interview where the 88 Films guys are like, hey, did you know that this movie was like heavily censored in the 90s when it came to America? And he was shocked. He was like, what the fuck? And he talked for like 5 minutes about how shocked he was that it was censored, because he thought America and like Western Europe was like super uncensored and like free to just show whatever. And so he was like, oh wow, this is really the first time that like this movie has been shown uncut for y'all. So, because he did the intro and didn't really think it was real. And he was like, what? Like, you see it on screen, him just freaking out about it. So, that's all I have to say. I love this movie. Everybody either hates it or loves it because of the rape scenes, but I think the rape scenes are so over the top. And the director talks about it, how it's supposed to be, like, super over the top and, like, not taken seriously. So, I don't know. It's absolutely bonkers. Our main characters are very incompetent, because this cover here makes it look like badass Terminator woman, but they don't do anything the entire movie. And all the men do it. But, yeah. Everyone needs to
I
check this out. I think it's out of print. I don't know, but
I need to see it. I got it recommended from a friend on YouTube to watch it, and I need to get it. But
half
I
of
don't
the
know if it's sold out. It's
yeah
gonna be
half of
hard.
the images here are of people getting raped and the breast held. I can't even like show it, but they show a rape like on the back of it. So
Because
yeah,
I seen a film called Robo Vampires, which is a B movie that's fun, but I've net Robo Trick took the cake for me when I saw that title. I was like, Robo Trick. That's the best title you could probably think of.
there is so much nudity on everything on this, and we have a driller killer in this movie. Someone with a wielding a drill to kill
Nice.
people, and it's so much better than driller killer.
I need to watch it somehow.
Yeah,
Seems right up my alley.
it is so funny, and it's mostly all the rape scenes that makes it super sleazy, but it's also very bloody. So there's a lot of decapitations, lots of gunfights, and everything. So
And I just looked it up. It's a 1991 film.
yeah,
So it's around Ebola Syndrome. It's around that time.
yeah, only 5 years separate. So,
Yeah.
but I was not expecting them in the
Nice.
essay to compare and contrast Ebola syndrome with Robotrix. I did not even think they were remotely similar. And that's why I watched Ebola
Oh.
Syndrome. I wasn't going to watch it. And they were talking about how in that movie they just ramped everything up. But for Robotrix, it was just the sex that they ramped up. Because they were like, hey, Robocop and Terminator did not have sex. We got to do that shit. So.
To sell it. Would you prefer more Robotrix or Ricky O?
I haven't seen Ricky O in a very long time. So I need to rewatch it first.
Oh, okay.
I was going to have that be my third movie, but I did Boarding House instead. Because all three of my movies would have been Category 3 Hong Kong made films.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'll break from it a little bit. And I wanted to be all new watches. So I haven't seen any of these movies ever until now. So
I think I forgot to show Bloody Moon. There's a glare,
oh
but
yeah, I know
So-
that cover well because it always pops up on my Amazon thing. Was like, you should buy this, and I'm like, it's Severin. But I guess through
Yeah.
Amazon they don't get the money, so I could do that.
yeah, it's worth the watch for sure, man. If you like slasher films, it's worth the watch. I'm putting Robotrix on my watch list. I don't know when I'll get it, but I'm putting it there.
It was pretty cheap, $30, I think, for basically a giant Arrow limited edition, which is usually like $45. So
Yeah.
I need to get a pen. I chose the theme last time. What's on your want of a theme for topic?
What do we have on the list there? I forgot.
I added a few since the last
Okay.
episode. So the first one is final directors, which is like final films of directors. I don't really like that idea. I might just take it off. Female-led action, which is interesting. Donald Pleasance featured. Shitty remakes. That speaks for itself. Trauma movies. Revenge films. Home invasion. Westerns. Non-franchise slashers. Video nasties. Robots. And zombies.
The one that stuck in my head is probably revenge films. I think that would be
Ooh.
fun.
I already have one of them done because the last episode we were gonna do, not this last, but the last one of 2021 was gonna be revenge films, and I already did one. So that works out well because I only have to do two more. Yay! So I will underline that.
I'm still from the holiday. I wanted to do it, so I'm still with it. You know, still in my head.
Yeah, because one of the movies I did, I rewatched it, and I watched a bunch of essays on the criterion of it. So maybe that gives away what it is, but it's a rewatch. So, but I'm happy I can finally get that the notes out of the way, because it says October 13th is when I made that notes. So about 4 months. So
It's been in waiting. It's been in waiting for sure.
because that was Spooktober when that happened. And we were gonna do it, but we were both just. I think you were doing 31 Days of Horror, and I was doing a heavy, like, 50 movies in a month. So.
I was crazy. My mind, I was burnt out. 60-some films.
I'm definitely gonna rewatch this
though.
movie before, just to rewatch it. But yeah,
That's probably one of my favorite categories. There is revenge films because I have so many.
I just got a lot from the haul. I mean, I think even one of the movies I got today, of the 2 movies I got from Scream Factory, is a revenge movie. So yeah. Sounds like we're doing revenge films. Very exciting.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm excited.
yeah. Thank you for joining me again, and thank you all for watching. Hopefully, I can get this out pretty quickly, because we don't have to do any edits on this, so that's exciting.
Well, thanks for having me, Christian. It's always a blast, and I look forward to the next one, man. Let's keep it going.